Monday, April 3rd, Regional Planning Commission meeting to order. Could we have a roll call, please?
You can. I was just letting some last-minute stragglers into the meeting. Sarah Chavilicek,
Here.
Shelley Reed.
Here.
There we go. Francine Donchik,
Here.
Peter Gower,
Here.
Mark Johnson,
Here.
Marilyn Kramer,
Here.
Kate Nelson,
Here.
Alex Velto,
Here.
and Kyle West.
Here.
All right, we have a
Thank
quorum.
you. Commissioner West, would you lead us in the pledge? Allegiance to the flag
Flag
of the United
of the
States
United States of America.
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, no, we're fine, fine.
Thank you. Item 3, approval of the agenda.
Madam Chair, I motion to approve. Commissioner Donchik.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Commissioner Gower, second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 4, public comment.
At this time, I've not received any.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Item 5, approval of the minutes for February 23, 2023.
Madam,
Go ahead.
I make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
Thank you.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Item 6, business of the day. Director Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have item 6A. It's a public hearing, a regional plan conformance review, the City of Sparks comprehensive plan. It's an amendment on Prater Way. We have Regional Planner Chris Tolley to take us through a presentation.
Hello. Okay. Good evening, Commissioners. Chris Tolley, TMRPA. This item before you is a conformance review for the Prater Way Amendment to the City of Sparks Comprehensive Plan, case number 23-005. And to start with overview of the proposal. So the proposal is an amendment to the City of Sparks Comprehensive Plan to change the existing land use from mixed-use district, mixed residential, to the proposed, which is mixed-use district, mixed-use commercial. These designations, the names are a bit long, so I'm going to refer to them later in the staff report as the existing and proposed. Subject site is approximately 9.3 acres in size and is composed of 7 parcels. And the entire site is situated in the mixed-use core regional land designation. Subject site is located on the north side of Prater Way between Sullivan Lane and 18th Street, again in the City of Sparks. And finally, regional planning staff is recommending that the proposal conforms with the 2019 regional plan. To continue with the overview, the Sparks City Council sponsored this amendment to the comprehensive plan in December of 2022 for the purpose of supporting economic activity along the Prater Way primary investment corridor. The City of Sparks generally submits comprehensive plan amendments to regional planning for conformance review immediately after the Sparks Planning Commission's review of the proposal. And with that said, the Sparks Planning Commission approved the proposal at their February 16th meeting. And then finally, prior to becoming effective, the amendment must first be found in conformance with the regional plan. And if approved by the RPC, the amendment will go to the City of Sparks for final adoption. Policy RC9 of the 2019 regional plan sets the review criteria for a conformance review, which is listed on this slide. We'll go over the analysis presented in the staff report in the following slides. In regards to population growth, the existing designation provides opportunities for transit-supportive mixed-use development with an emphasis on residential, and the proposed designation provides a wider range of commercial and recreational uses and does also allow for medium to high-density housing. Regarding regional form, as noted, the subject site is located in the mixed-use core, and the proposal is appropriate within this tier. Additionally, the subject site and surrounding area are already developed and no impacts to regional form were identified by regional planning staff. And finally, the City of Sparks has determined that the proposed change is compatible with surrounding land uses, and regional planning staff concurs with this determination. In regard to public facilities and services, the subject site is located in a developed area of the city and already has infrastructure provided to the site and can serve the existing parcels. And then finally, regarding regional coordination, regional planning staff sent an initial review memo for the case during the City of Sparks request for comment period, as required by policy RC5. And then in general, this section of the regional plan's policies describe intergovernmental coordination, annexations, spheres of influence, and implementation of the plan. Applicable policies in this section include RC9, conformance review findings, which is being considered in this item. And as noted, regional planning staff is recommending approval of the proposal. Here is the suggested motion for the case, which is also located on page 12 of the packet. This does conclude my presentation. However, staff is available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. This is a public hearing item. Are there any disclosures from commissioners? Do we have any public comment?
We've received none for this item.
Okay. Any questions for staff? Okay. Is a commissioner prepared to make a motion?
Commissioner Donchik, I'm prepared to make a motion.
Thank you.
I move to find the Prater Way Amendment to the City of Sparks Comprehensive Plan in conformance with the 2019 Truckee Meadows Regional Plan based on the findings listed in the staff report.
I'll second that motion, Madam Chair.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item 6B.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jeremy Smith for the record. Item 6B is another public hearing item and regional plan conformance review, again for the City of Sparks Comprehensive Plan. This one is referred to as the Chalets Phase 2, and we have policy analyst Nate Kusha to give us a presentation on this item.
Good evening, Commissioners. Nate Kusha, Team RPA for the record. As Director Smith mentioned, this is a conformance review for the Chalets Phase 2 City of Sparks Master Plan Amendment. So this Master Plan Amendment for the City of Sparks Comprehensive Plan is for a land use change on roughly 8.49 acres from low-density residential to multifamily residential MF14. And it is located at the southeast corner of Wedekin Road and El Rancho Drive. So that is between McCarran Boulevard and Audie Boulevard, directly abutting El Rancho. And staff's determination is that this conformance review does conform with the 2019 Truckee Meadows Regional Plan. As all of you hopefully know at this point, Policy R9 outlines our review criteria, which we'll go through. So for population growth, the proposed multifamily land use designation allows for increased density, which increases housing choice and the potential for more affordable housing units in the region, which is appropriate in our Tier 1 regional land designation where this property is located. As mentioned before, the subject site lies within Tier 1, and when looking at regional form, Tier 1 land is where moderate and varying range of development is expected, and number 2 in our priority hierarchy for development. In the Tier 1, the residential density has no maximum and a minimum of the currently existing density. This is obviously asking for an increase in density, therefore conforming with that policy. On this slide, you can see both the existing land uses as well as the proposed land uses. When considering compatibility, the MF14 land use is compatible with surrounding land uses and provides a buffer between the high-density land uses to the west and to the south, which you can see on the map here, and the lower-density land uses to the north and east. So just quick rundown on the map, that's our change from that low-density residential to MF14 on our subject site. To the left there, you have MF24, which is an even higher density land use, as well as HDR, which is high density residential. And on that east side, we have intermediate density residential and our low-density residential as well. To the north is county land, and the land uses that we have there are lower density as well. They are LDS, LDS2, and MDS, which are 1 acre, half acre, and third acre lots, respectively. So again, this kind of sits in the middle of all of that, hopefully providing somewhat of a buffer between the low density and the high density. For public facilities and services, the subject site is located in a previously developed area where city services are already provided and existing infrastructure is available. Additionally, schools serving the subject site are all below maximum capacity, and transit service is available on Wedekind Road as well as on Green Bay Drive, which are both in very close proximity to this site, less than half a mile. For natural resources, as mentioned, this is a previously developed area, so there were no natural resource impacts that were identified on the site. Finally, our regional coordination section, as always, we coordinate with all the entities involved. We do our initial review memo, and we review our review criteria policy RC9, which we did through this presentation as well as in your staff report. So with that, there is a motion overhead. Myself and City of Sparks staff are available for any questions.
Thank you. This is a public hearing item. Are there any disclosures by commissioners? Do we have any public comment?
We have received none for this item.
Madam Chair, we do have one email that came in after Damien left the office, which is about this item, and so I'd like to read that quickly into the record. This is from Linda Ciampoli, I believe is the pronunciation, and the text goes as follows. I am adamantly against the zone change applied for in this application. The original intent of lifelong owner expected it to always remain a ranch. Circumstances beyond his control allowed it to come into private hands, and even the existing SF6 is too many homes for the site. This is a rural area where people have outdoor animals and do small ranchettes. It is far removed from what should be the dense zoning in the city core areas. We live and like it here because of its rural feel. That all changes when you are surrounded by apartments. Please don't allow this property to become one more pile of people.
Thank you. Do we have questions for staff? Okay. Do we have a motion? Commissioner West.
No, you just.
I asked for public comment, and no one has filled out a comment card. Okay, so if you have public comment to this, if you could, so commissioners, we're going to back up a bit and go back to public comment. So if you do have public comment, you can come to the podium. You have 3 minutes, and we'll get some comment cards that you can fill out for us. So
He's gathering the
He's
cards for you right now, and you could just fill out your name and then come up for 3 minutes.
So whomever would like to approach first, you can come up and provide your public comment, and then we'll just go through the group. It's here at the podium, and you'll identify yourself and your residence.
David Bjorkman. I live in one of the neighbors. A little bit confused because yesterday I did send in a letter to the input so I don't know why you didn't have it. You got the one from Linda today, but I sent in one yesterday, so I don't know, it's an email. So I think a lot of neighbors that live here, and I don't know if we can pull up any of the mapping again, but one of the things that's obvious to us is that I think everybody here lives in this area north of Wedekind. It's an area, as he described earlier, that has third-acre lots, has half-acre lots, but a lot of them are 1 acre and even some 5-acre lots in there. So this is a very, very rural part of the community and always has been. Like I say, the previous owner he donated this land. His estate was going to donate the land to the college, and it was just always going to be a farm. And so right now, and through circumstances, after he passed away, some heirs decided to do something else, and it ended up in public hands. But, it's devastating for us to have this kind of density thrown upon us, because we feel like a transition area. Since we have third-acre lots, the current zoning is for SF6, which allows roughly 6 houses per acre. So that's double the density of our minimum size lot. And so we're thinking that's probably the appropriate zoning for this property. And to go up to 14 where we could have, so no one lives on this property right now. These are, they said described it as a developed area. Well, it is completely undeveloped. There's no sidewalks, there's no curbs. It's a rural farmland out there. And the change is not just incremental. This is a night and day change, going from nobody living there, only because 2 houses are vacant, but nobody living there, to 130, the potential of having 130 people living there. So it's a big impact on the roads. It's a big impact on the community. And it's something that, as a community and us neighbors, if you lived in that area and you picked it because you wanted to live in a rural area and you liked the open spaces and you raise your animals and then had all these apartments thrown on you, I don't think you'd be happy. I don't think, so that's our concern. I'm done. Thank you.
So if you could complete the comment card. Anyone else?
To the members of the board, my name is Frank Bigotti. I lived at 3515 Wedekind Road for 75 years. I'm probably the oldest living member on Wedekind to this date. I've seen a lot of changes. Leslie Gray is the property owner, original property owner. While he was living, he came to me and he says, Frank, I'm going to put your name on my trust. I do not want anything to be built on here for 25 years. That would put it out to 2028. I still have that document. Okay? This hasn't been brought forward. Okay? So, when Mrs. Gray died, she originally left it to part of it to the university. They took 3 acres. They basically landlocked her. At that point, she had no recourse. So the buyers apparently bought it from the university and Mrs. Gray after she left it to her nephew. So consequently, now it's in a la-la land. Nobody was really maintaining it. So what I'm saying is, the high density is way too much for the area. Wedekind Road is half county and half city. Okay? My boundary line goes to the center line of Wedekind Road. We gave an easement way back when Wedekind was still a dirt road. So I want you guys, and we were in general contractors in the area for 40 years. We built custom houses, and as you notice on the north side, there's a lot of custom houses there. Okay, so Wedekind Road should have been a nice part of Sparks, an area for rural areas, for animals to be grown and whatever people wanted to do. But as the city impeded on us, we're now showing that we have a tremendous amount of road traffic on Wedekind. In the morning, mind you, when I was a kid, I could count the cars one every half hour. Now, when I go out on Wedekind in the morning, I might have to wait 5 minutes before I can get on because of the traffic. So as a body, you have to do the right thing and say, okay, the forefathers already designed this area to be this. Why do we need to change it? To accommodate what? Why is it that the city always impedes on the old part of town to accommodate the new? So, growth, growth is going out to the north. So let it be there and create the north part of town as a new part of the city and not disturb so much.
Your time is up.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you.
That's all I have to say.
Any other,
But just be cautious.
any other public comment?
Good evening. My name is Christine Carlos. I too have lived on Mayor Way since 1964. And we have some, I think, pretty serious concerns as far as traffic issues. If you look, if you can look at that map there, you can see where El Rancho is, the big El Rancho, and then where Whittakin Road is, and the concern that the previous speaker addresses where Whittakin Road is. What has happened with the building of the new Hug High School is that because of the increase in growth of Spanish Springs, a lot of the traffic has changed with the Spanish Springs traffic now coming down McCarran, and because of the traffic being so backed up there, we're seeing people using Whittakin Road as a way to get around the backup there in the morning and then in the evenings, which causes the problem that he was talking about for us not being able to get in and out of our private road on Mayor Way. It's a two-lane street, a little dinky two-way street. There are several issues that occur now. Already, all of the schools in the surrounding area are maxed out. If you now add multi-family units in that little dinky corner instead of the single-family, well, never mind that I don't even want single-family units built on the pasture land that's there, but then if you add multifamily units in an area that is really meant to be single-family units, there is no capacity for schools. There's no capacity for water. There's no capacity for traffic. The closest fire station is, I forget, however many miles away because we're county. The infrastructure doesn't exist for us. We are county on the other side of Whittakin. And so there's always this issue between county and who's going to address when we call for help. So that little corner on the other side of Whittakin is county. The green where he's talking about is city. So it's a little no man's land. Right now, what we're seeing are high school students and middle school students and the little ones walking down Whittakin Road, for which there isn't a pedestrian walkway to get to school right now, because there's no paved, and so now, there are some real concerns here that I have in terms of safety. Once or twice a year, a transformer gets taken out, so we lose electricity just because a rancho seems to be a speedway for some reason. Also, the increase in crime has increased. This is even before, I got 3 seconds, before we add this new unit, these new units. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comment?
My name is Mike Mooney. I live at 3505 Whittaken Road. My wife and I bought our home there in 1974. My main concern is, what are you going to do with the traffic that's going to be coming in and going out of this apartment complex? You have Garfield to the south, no signal. Turning left would be impossible at traffic time. So they're going to turn right and they're going to come up Whittaken Road. Whittaken Road has already been explained. I'm sure most of you are familiar with the narrowness and the country feel of that road, lined with trees and minimum population. But McCarran traffic is taking over as a way of avoiding McCarran. In fact, we live, if you come up El Rancho, there's Mayor Way first, Farrell Ross Drive, and then Bogoti Way, which Frank talked about. The traffic is backed up beyond Bogoti Way at high traffic times in the morning. So please consider the traffic flow and what you're going to do, because you're going to have to put signals in. You're going to have to empty some of that traffic out other than Garfield. It won't take it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment? Okay, I'm going to close public comment and bring it back to the board. Commissioners, do you have questions of staff? Commissioner West?
Yes, I do. For staff, would you mind, and I don't know, I guess, at this point, if we're able to address a specific project or not. And that's the one thing I'm not aware of that might address then what that traffic pattern would look like.
Jeremy Smith for the record. We do have City of Sparks staff here that could probably weigh in on the status of any given project on the site. But what we are considering right now is the change to the master plan designation.
Okay, thank you. And I'm going to go ahead and ask if it's okay
Absolutely.
to have, we'll have City Sparks staff go ahead and explain that for us. Thank you, Sienna.
Thank you, members of the Regional Planning Commission. For the record, Sienna Reed, Planning Manager with the City of Sparks. In reviewing this conformance review request tonight, it is a request for an amendment to the City of Sparks Comprehensive Plan. We do not have an individual project that is before us at this time. So in evaluating the request, it really comes down to whether or not the request conforms with the goals and policies of the 2019 Truckee Meadows Regional Plan. Any project-specific impacts would be evaluated ultimately when that project is submitted to the City of Sparks. In evaluating the comprehensive plan amendment, City of Sparks staff did initially evaluate the viability of roadway capacity on El Rancho. We know that a future project would not access Wedekind, but again, very specific traffic information would be provided when a project does come in. That's when we would see estimates of trip generation. That's when trips would be evaluated in relationship to trips on surrounding roadways, and we'd get a better sense of what would be the exact nature of roadway improvements to accommodate a project. And again, we do not have a project at this time with a comprehensive plan amendment.
Thank you.
Other questions from commissioners?
Madam Chair, if I could follow-up question.
Yes, Commissioner Gower?
Thank you. Question for staff, Nate. When you look at these types of proposals and based on the public comments that we've heard, how do you look at compatibility of land uses? You know, we have a kind of a lower density residential land use pattern to the north of Wedekind and proposing something a little bit higher density. And I'm looking at particularly policy RF11 and how that might apply. Can you just kind of talk me through how you looked at it?
Yeah, no problem. So when we look at compatibility from a regional perspective, we usually take a little bit more of a wider lens. However, in this case, we saw this as sort of a buffer between the two sides because we are directly adjacent to both lower density county land to the north of Wedekind there. But however, on the west side, directly across El Rancho, we're at an even higher land use designation at MF24. So for us, this seemed compatible from a density perspective given that it's right next to a higher density than it is, and maybe slightly incompatible, if you will, although I wouldn't use that term exactly, but less compatible with the densities to the north. But given that there's the MF24, this could be an even higher density. We are in Tier 1. Regional land designation is something to consider as well, where we're looking for increased density. And this is actually very close to, if we go back to our other map here, you can see right to the south, right along Audie there, that's actually our mixed-use core. That's our highest density regional land designation. And so this is areas where, from a regional perspective, we would look to intensify to a bigger density, bring in more people to the core of our region within that McCarran Loop especially.
Thanks, Nate, for that clarification. And Sienna, if I could just follow up with a question for you.
Thank you.
So given what Nate said in terms of the purview of regional planning's review and that broader lens, when City of Sparks looks at a particular project at some point down the road, I would assume that you would be looking at more specific compatibility factors of a project and certain design features that might mitigate, impacts on surrounding development, or you at least consider those as part of a specific project, but we're not looking at those right now. Is that right?
Thank you. To your question, Mr. Gower, or Commissioner Gower, certainly, yes, the City of Sparks would look at project-specific components that relate to compatibility, but we also look at compatibility through our comprehensive plan amendment process. And I do want to reiterate that not only does the project or the proposed land use designation provide a buffer between higher density lands to the south and then also to the west, there are a variety of higher density lands that surround the unincorporated county island that's under discussion. Further to the east, there are properties that are designated MF24 with a maximum density of 24 dwelling units to the acre, as well as MF14, which is with a maximum of 14 dwelling units to the acre. So staff did also take a look at that larger land use pattern, and the land use pattern is characterized by multifamily comprehensive plan land use designations surrounding the unincorporated county island, and we do concur with regional planning staff that the MF14 designation as proposed would provide a buffer to the properties to the north of Wedekind and is again characteristic of the larger land use pattern. So happy to answer any follow-up questions on that.
That's it. Thank you, Sienna.
Any other questions from commissioners? Okay, bring it back to the board for consideration.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Johnson, just a comment on this, and I appreciate the line of questioning that both the commissioners came up with. This is one of those items that is trying to look at it from a regional perspective rather than a local jurisdictional perspective. From a regional perspective, I think it was well explained that this is Tier 1 land. This is an area where all of the tenets of our regional plan are emphasizing that as a higher density use as opposed to being out on the fringes. So from a regional perspective, I completely understand staff's recommendation and staff's analysis. What I guess follow up with the appreciation of is that from a local perspective, there are a lot of issues that we heard this evening that will be looked at on a site-specific basis. Things like traffic, things like pedestrian access, things like signalization. Those are items that when a project does come in, will be analyzed both by the city and probably the city's planning commission through some version of entitlement process. So looking at it from that lens and from the regional level, I can support the project because of its location in the Tier 1 lands. and feel even more comfortable about that, knowing that there has been follow-up about what the specific jurisdiction is going to do with this property. So those are just my comments to follow up and sort of summarize what I've heard, so thank you. And since nobody else is jumping up, I will make the motion. Nope, that's fine. I will do that. So make the motion that, in this case, I move to find the Chalets Phase 2 Master Plan Amendment to the City of Sparks Comprehensive Plan in conformance with the 2019 Truckee Meadows Regional Plan based on the findings listed in the staff report, and I can match those findings.
Madam Chair, I'm willing to make a second on that motion.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Madam Chair, can I follow up one just quick
Certainly.
comment? City of Sparks staff is here. I guess I would just maybe recommend that there be a conversation or potential information provided by the City of Sparks to the residents that were here about the next steps on this process. So,
Thank you.
Madam Chair, we're moving on to
Item C.
Item 6C, which is presentation, discussion, and possible direction to staff regarding the Regional Planning Commission's PRS Review Subcommittee's recommendations for modifications to the Project of Regional Significance Guidelines found in Appendix 2 of the 2019 Truckee Meadows Regional Plan. And so I'm going to go ahead and take us through this one. Jeremy Smith for the record. Next slide, please. So just to kind of recap, we've been going through a process to update the resolution, the Regional Planning Commission resolution that governs projects of regional significance. This is not the final meeting, but this is where we've been able to get to with the document, and we're going to propose some of the drafted changes. Thank you very much. But quickly, I'm just going to run through the bullets of what we're recommending, and then we're going to take you through the resolution edits themselves. So first off, there's a section in the beginning that talks about previous regional plan or resolutions that were adopted. It was missing 2 of the adopted resolutions, so we added that in. We found some clerical errors that we fixed. We corrected some outdated references to statutes and organizations that have renamed. We've added historic, archaeological, cultural, or scenic resources to one of the sections, and we'll talk about that. And then we've actually suggested a new guideline which addresses private and charter schools and their role is as PRS. So with that, Damon, if we could please take a look at the attachment itself, which is attachment 2 to the staff report, and you can find that if you want to follow along in your printed packet on page 59 of the packet. Yeah, let's zoom right in on that sucker. Okay, so up top, it still says TBD in terms of the resolution number, because when we actually bring this to be formally adopted, we'll have the resolution number. That may be at the end of this month. We are planning to take this to the Regional Planning Governing Board for a final look-see before we do the final adoption. But you'll notice in blue text underlined, these are additions. And basically, when we did our research over the past several months, we found that the resolution was actually edited on these dates as well, and so we wanted to make sure that it was complete, so we added those sections in. Moving along, no change. Here we go. So we wanted to make sure, based on counsel from our legal counsel, that we accurately represented how wetlands would be delineated as PRS, and so we wanted to specifically call out the Section 404 of the Clean Water Act, so we added that in. Right below that, you'll see Northern Nevada Public Health, which was formerly known as the Washoe County District Board of Health. That decision has been made to change that name. However, the rebranding process continues. So we've added in both sections to future-proof the resolution so that it notices the actual name, but recognizes in the interim that it's the health district we're talking about. The infectious, as you can see the red line, we took out the word infectious. That no longer is part of the health district's code. They recommended we use biohazardous. So we've changed the reference to reference both hazardous, which was already there, and now biohazardous. And there's a definition of that coming up too. Then the next section, E, very interesting. In one of the previous edits and based on legislative action, this point of paleontological resources was added to the resolution. However, the state law indicates that the RPC has the authority to adjust or to make a PRS historic, archaeological, cultural, or scenic resources. So if a project comes through and is going to impact any of those resources, that authority is written in state law. And so the PRS Review Subcommittee agreed that we should memorialize that in the resolution. Now there's one last piece, which is the last sentence of section E. And it indicates that these resources need to be actually designated in the local jurisdiction's master plans. So it's not just a free-for-all we've opened up to any archaeological, historic, or scenic resource. It really puts the power in the jurisdiction's hands to designate those resources in their master plans. And then if a project were to come through and impact those designated resources, that would be the trigger to bring it to this body for a regional significance, a conformance review. Finally, we are here with the new section, section F, the new guideline we're proposing. I'll just read quickly. The project will require a change in zoning, a special use permit, an amendment to a master plan, a tentative map, or other approval for the use of land, which, if approved, will allow for a new school within the TMSA with a planned student enrollment capacity of 500 students or greater that is not identified in the Washoe County School District Facilities Plan. And so we've obviously had several items in the past where we've talked through this. There's been a lot of back and forth on how can we address the regional impact of schools, especially large schools, and are there any sort of apparent gaps in our ability to review school permitting process? And what we think we found is that the Washoe County School District's Facilities Plan is a document that is subject to review by this body for conformance with the regional plan. And all of the schools that are both in existence and planned are included in that facilities plan. And so we feel that there is a review process to look at Washoe County School District facility schools. However, there is not a commensurate planning process to look at charter and private schools. And through conversations with members of the board, members of the school district, members of the Regional Planning Governing Board, we've ascertained that there are observable impacts of some of these charter and private schools that are not necessarily being reviewed in a public venue. When they come through for a permit to build a charter or private school, it can go directly to an administrative review at the jurisdiction. And so there isn't necessarily a public say. You can still comment on those things, but there's no meeting that's held where folks can come and talk like they did tonight. And for the very large charter schools that do ostensibly have these impacts, we want to make sure that there is a way for that to happen. So we did some analysis, and I'd like to switch back to the PowerPoint, please, Damien, where we look specifically at where are these charter and private schools located, and can we ascertain potential impacts? So first off, this is a map and distribution graph of the 33 charter and private schools that we were able to find in working with the school district and making phone calls and that sort of thing. And I think what you can see from the red bar chart is that, the higher the bar here, the more schools we're counting in an enrollment size bin. So we got a lot of 100, 200, and 300 student schools in terms of charter and private schools, but not so many beyond the 500. And so we're using this to illustrate that, we chose for this draft a threshold of 500 students because that would allow us to capture the schools that have come up over and over again in the discussions about these impacts, and those namely are the Doral Academy on Mount Rose, Pinecrest out in Spanish Springs, Bishop Manogue High School on Virginia, and the Coral Middle School, which is really close to right here. We're just nearby, 9th Street. So that's kind of where we got to in terms of picking that number, but we wanted to go deeper and take a look. Could we ascertain if there are really traffic impacts around these schools or maybe proximity issues? So let's go to the next slide. I guess I had the clicker. Thanks, Damien. I forgot I had it. Yeah. If I could go to the next slide, Jeremy. Yes. Thank you, Jeremy. Yeah, I could do this myself. This is a distribution now of the Washoe County School District schools, and I think what you can see is the very tallest bar is where 500 is at. And so a lot of schools that are already out there in the school district are of that size 500 or greater, but they all still have that same kind of distribution towards a lot of smaller schools with some larger high schools on the tail. And again, these schools are reviewed as part of the facilities plan conformance review process. Just wanted to juxtapose that distribution with the charter and private school distribution. Now, Jeremy, next slide, please. Thank you, Jeremy. So moving on to sort of looking at how did we get maybe at the traffic? Can we ascertain? And the short answer is we have not been able to. And what we're looking at here is a couple of things. In pink hexagons, we have traffic count data gathering locations that you can find from NDOT on the Trina website. These often have hourly traffic volume reports over both weekdays and weekend days. And so we did attempt to look at the time, say when school gets out, like a middle school gets out at 2 o'clock, in that 2:30, 2 o'clock zone. So we would look at that hourly traffic count and attempt to see, could we ascertain, I said that word about 400 times, can we find out if there is some perceptible traffic impact that this Trina station is recording? Well, I think what you can tell is they're not necessarily placed in great proximity, and this certainly in this image we've captured, but across the region, the intended purpose of these Trina counts was not to track school traffic. And so they are not actually fitting the bill in terms of allowing us to understand those differential traffic impacts. So we did go down the path, we worked with NDOT a little bit, and we talked through it, and in the end, we weren't really able to ascribe a noticeable traffic impact signal to creating that threshold. So we went ahead and said, well, what about proximity? Something that also has come up is proximity of schools to each other, because then you're getting an additive effect. Maybe you're getting more traffic, that sort of a thing. And so we did also examine that. What you're looking at here in the green are quarter-mile buffers around each school, and now we're looking at the intersect zones. So in the middle there, we have St. Albert the Great Catholic School next to, can I read that? Clayton. Next to Tolles, thank you. And but you might also notice that they're all using different parts of the street network to access the school, right? Their proximity in a Euclidean way doesn't necessarily get at how those impacts might be shared among close proximity of schools. So it was another one of those things that didn't really illuminate the issue in a way that we would hoped that it would have. But we think that after, if we wanted to spend more time and we had budget, a targeted analysis that actually put the traffic counters at the school locations of interest, I think this would be a time-consuming and expensive project, but that would probably get at what we were hoping to get from the Trina data. We don't really have that built into the budget, so that would be a different approach. In the end of the day, we feel that, maybe we can go to the next slide, Jeremy, and take a look at what we kind of landed on after today's subcommittee meeting we had before this meeting. And that really is that designating a threshold makes the rule clear and allows for people in the community to, factor that into their planning efforts when they're thinking about siting or building a new charter or private school, and they know they're on one side or the other. So getting to that number was important. And again, based on what the analysis we've been able to do, we think that a number of 500 does a good job of capturing those large schools which are most likely to have the impacts that we're worried about and that have a regional impact, that are drawing from across the region. One thing that came up during the meeting today as well was that, and this was from the school district staff, Adam Searcy, great idea, would be to notify and coordinate with the state public charter authority, who has to early on, give the school, the folks their charter to go ahead and get the money to put the charter school together. So we're going to reach out to them and understand where they're at and inform them of what we're trying to do so we stay coordinated. That doesn't necessarily get to the private schools, but it's certainly a step in the right direction. And then we also noticed one more thing from today's meeting, that we missed one of the references to the Washoe County Health District Board, so we're going to fix it up and call it the Northern Nevada Public Health Board as well. So with that, I'll go to the next slide, which is the motion. I'm doing it, Damien. And that's up there on the screen, and we're happy to answer questions or any thoughts you might have.
Thank you, Director Smith. And when we had the subcommittee meeting today, with the full commission, I just wanted to extend my appreciation to the regional planning staff, because this was, as you can see, it was a big project to identify where all the charter schools are. And because Washoe County school districts are well-known, but that, finding where those charter schools are, and private and public, as well as where possible traffic data is. So I really do appreciate the effort that the staff put into this, in addition to everything else that they're doing. So, questions from commissioners? Commissioner Reed.
Yeah, I don't have a question. I did want to make a comment that in the review subcommittee that I did not support the student population for charter and private schools being 500. I think the threshold, it should be a higher student population, or take into consideration proximity to other schools nearby. And I know, I understand all of the, everything that went into forming that thought, but I still object to that amount. I think it's too low. Schools of 500 are still very, very small. And as I noted, the majority of schools in the Washoe County School District are all larger population. And I think it puts a burden on private and charter schools to have to go through this process at a 500 threshold. I think it should be higher. So I won't be supporting it as written.
Thank you, Commissioner Reed. Other questions, comments from commissioners? And just in terms of some of the conversations we had in the, and as Jeremy alluded to, when we're thinking about some of our public charters, is that this also revealed to us what we're missing, and this gives us an opportunity to fill in with that language, so we're covering and we're being good stewards as regional planning commissioners, but we're also being good stewards to the public, because if this would have been in place, we probably wouldn't have seen a Doral Academy and a Galena High School on one small residential street. And so I just, again, appreciate the work of the staff. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jeremy Smith for the record again. And just to point out that whenever we do an analysis for conformance of the Washoe County School District Facilities Plan or of an individual PRS, let's say that a guideline similar to this is adopted and all of a sudden a school is coming forward to be thought of as a PRS, proximity to other schools and a more detailed look at the specifics of the traffic ingress, egress, and the patterns and whatever information we can get our hands on will be part of that. So just to kind of bake that into the mix for you.
Commissioner Johnson.
Madam Chair, thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Just echoing again from the subcommittee meeting, good discussion today. Staff was very thoughtful in their deliberation and presentation. I did want to just make sure, as a part of just the one item that wasn't captured there, and I think, Jeremy, you mentioned it when you were talking, is that you were going to add the word students after the number 500 was one of the additional kind of cleanup items that we identified in that today.
Thank you for that. I read it, but you're right. I need in the actual draft, we'll make sure that's in there.
Okay, and then I guess just I think Commissioner Reed brought up a really good point. In terms of the scale of the schools, 500 is less than what new elementary schools are now, and I certainly appreciate that thought. I guess the way that I wrap my head around using a smaller number is the fact that the Washoe County School District's 700 student elementary school is not going in proximity to any other 700 student schools, just because the school district is distributing theirs on a needed basis. So while I think the discussion about a higher number versus a lower number is a valid one, I think staff's recommendation of 500 is the number that makes sense to me, and I would continue to support that. I think it does, as was shown, limits the number of facilities that are going to fall under this particular review. And I do think that it provides some very specific clarity to our jurisdictions to know when something comes in to identify that it will be a PRS, which I think is something that some of the other options with traffic and with proximity were a lot harder to enforce. So that was a good discussion that we had for staff to clarify that. So again, appreciate where that was at and just wanted to throw that out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions or comments from commissioners? I don't see any microphones unmuting. So we do have a motion in front of us.
Madam
Commissioner
Chair,
Johnson.
before I make the motion, just real quick, Jeremy, can you explain to us what the next steps are on this? You said this isn't the
Yes,
final, so I just want to understand.
absolutely.
The motion.
Yes, thank you for that. So the motion would be to basically accept this report and then to take this draft new guideline and the changes to the Regional Planning Governing Board at their April 13th meeting for one more courtesy review, since they've been very active in this and want to make sure that it's sort of meeting their requirements as well. Ultimately, the authority rests with this body to adopt the resolution, but again, it's courtesy heads up to them. So they might have feedback that we might want to bring back and reincorporate and bring the PRS review subcommittee back together before we try to finally adopt this, or they might feel like it's fine. And if that's the case, then possibly we would bring it at the end to our April meeting for an actual adoption as a new resolution.
Thank you, Director Smith. So with that, I move to direct staff to present the proposed draft with the recommended changes from the deliberations this evening from both the subcommittee and the full body of the RPC to the RPGB for review.
Commissioner Donchik, I second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
Thank you. The motion carries. So we're now on to item 7, reports.
I have a short report, Madam Chair, but I would like to open it up to the members first to make sure that no one else might have a report.
Members or directors' reports, yes. Any reports from directors members before we turn it over to the director? I want to compliment the little bunny and chick on the agenda. That's cute.
Awesome.
It just kind of makes you smile, since we don't have much to smile with all that snow out there. Okay.
So quick report.
Director Smith.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So thank you again for allowing us to move this meeting to tonight. That really helped out in terms of the spring break and the vacation schedule we had. So thanks again for that. And regarding our next meeting, we're looking at potentially having a kind of a 2-part meeting where we would hopefully, if the caseload is low at the end of April, because we're still on the April meeting track, but we would do that first business of the day part, and then maybe take a small break, and then kind of workshop some regional plan update stuff where we're looking at the natural resource plan, the public infrastructure plan, and our path to success to October of 2024. We're going to bring a similar item to the Regional Planning Governing Board on the 13th. So we'll have their feedback, and then we could get to work in the real technical fashion with this body, which is the Technical Advisory Committee and is responsible for doing the plan update. So that would be the first workshop. That's the idea. Also, I know that you've mentioned previously that an update about the legislative tracking would be of interest. So waiting on a report from our lobbyists. I'm going to speak with him in the morning, but there's been a few bills that we've been tracking that I can fill you in on. One is SB 81, which revises provisions for regional planning. It's basically a bill that went through 2 years ago that formed a committee and it asked that the county coordinate with cities and report back to the legislature. There are some potential edits to that, kind of the content of the report and who it gets sent to. My understanding at this time is that it doesn't have legs, I guess is how they might say it down there in Carson City, but we're still watching it. The deadline, I believe, for bills that, that basically will fall to the wayside if they haven't been taken out of their committees they originated in is April 14th. So we'll know soon which bills fall off. Another bill that we're looking at is SB 169. That's a bill that revises master plans, and it asks that master plans have a specific component that addresses heat mitigation. Seems like a very good idea and something that we're also looking at as part of the natural resource planning effort, and could have possibly been something we would have asked the jurisdictions to put in their master plans if it wasn't in there anyway. So I think we're very aligned on that one. And then finally, another one we're looking at is AB 213, and that is a bill that seeks to revise provisions for zoning. And what's potentially concerning is some requests in there to specify parcels that have a particular zoning that would be good candidates for affordable housing or to change to accommodate residential density. And so that's a pretty specific request. That's akin to the work that we do with our suitability factors and our development. I don't think it's saying regional planning will do this, but we're watching it to make sure that there isn't some duplicative process that's being implemented if we're already doing it. I just want to make sure that we're gonna weigh in on that bill. So we're watching that one close. Those are the three that I'm aware of right now. But once we get, I talked with our lobbyist in the morning. He's going to be coming and presenting a report at the April 13th governing board meeting. So you'll have access to that report as well after that happens. And then my final thing is the sad but also happy retirement of Kyle West, and this will be his last official meeting as a regional planning commissioner. Thank you very much for your service, Kyle, and
Thank you.
maybe you can tell us where you're heading.
Yeah, I know this is kind of quick, but I had made a deal with my wife. If it was still snowing as of April 1st, I would move her to Atlanta, Georgia. I lost. We're going. Actually, that is where we're going. We have family down there, and a great opportunity came up for a job as well. So we are heading down to the southeast next week.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, I've enjoyed very much working with everyone here, my fellow Sparks commissioners as well. It's been a lot of fun. It's been great to be involved with continuing to work with the community, and I wish everyone continued success, and thank you.
And I was nudged by the chair to announce one other person who's in the audience today, our PAC intern, Savannah Williams, who has been helping us with planning tasks and learning about regional planning, and we've been learning about what college kids do these days. Yeah. Thanks for coming, Sam.
Thank you.
Savannah.
And best wishes to you, Commissioner West. And I mean, it's like, to make something, that kind of prediction on April 1, it was either an April Fool's joke or it's like, oh my. So best wishes.
Thank you.
7B, legal counsel report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jessica Prenti for the record. Nothing to report tonight.
Okay, thank you. Item 8 for possible action, request for future agenda items. Okay, seeing none. Item 9, public comment.
Try this again. From my knowledge, we don't have any.
Thank you. Item 10, written correspondence.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We had some come through. When I sent out, I believe, the packet, I mentioned that one piece was available on our written correspondence webpage, which is accessible from the Team RPA meetings page, and then we read in the comment specifically today. So I think we're covered.
Thank you. Item 11. Motion to adjourn. Commissioner West. Motion to adjourn. Okay, thank you. Have a good evening, everyone.
Bye.